After only just rejoining WWE late last year, CM Punk reportedly is already looking to restructure his WWE contract as he wants to stay with the company forever. Buddy Matthews reportedly has re-signed with All Elite Wrestling. Switchblade Jay White details on his injury status and the injury that caused him to vacate the AEW World Trios Championships with the Bang Bang Gang. An update on the injury status of Dalton Castle. The injury that has led to him being sidelined for the remainder of the year has now been revealed. WWE signs International Wrestling star Delta. She is scheduled to move to the United States this month. Natalia reportedly did seriously consider joining AEW before re-signing with WWE. An update as to the changes to the TNA live event schedule for the remainder of the year. An NXT Championship match has been announced and confirmed for the Great American Bash. Tony D'Angelo will put the NXT Heritage Cup on the line. The Women's Tag Team Championships will also be defended during the Great American Bash. Hendry will be back on NXT next week and have a live concert on the Great American Bash. We have the ratings for Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network. Melissa Santos reveals she has signed with AEW and will be joining the AEW broadcast team. Jim Ross provides an update as to his status for AEW All In at Wembley Stadium in London next month. And the Rascals are victorious in the NXT Main Event. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about CM Punk and his contractual status with WWE. He's looking to stick around for the remainder of his pro wrestling career. Only months after returning to WWE, CM Punk is reportedly trying to restructure his deal with the company and wants to be with WWE, quote, forever. Now, interestingly, Ibo of Wrestle Purist, who does have sources very close to CM Punk, had said the following, saying, quote, when asked how long Punk's contract was with WWE for, he said, quote, I believe it's 3. I can tell you right now that he is in the process of trying to get his deal restructured from a money and years standpoint. Punk's legitimate stance right now is if all goes well, he will never leave. That's his legitimate standpoint. He wants to be here forever is the actual word he used. Basically, he wants this to work out. He wants to get paid, and then he wants, when it's time to slow down, to slow it down and just run NXT. Now, CM Punk, of course, has been back with WWE since November of 2023, returning in the closing moments of Survivor Series. He sustained a torn triceps in his first televised match back in the men's Royal Rumble match, but he has remained consistently present on WWE programming in his feud with Drew McIntyre, consistently costing McIntyre the World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, Punk will make his in-ring return at SummerSlam next weekend in a singles match against Drew McIntyre with Seth Rollins as the special guest referee. So what are your thoughts on Punk looking to already restructure his contract and stick with WWE forever? Do you think that's going to happen? Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Now, Buddy Matthews reportedly is still going to be All Elite for the remaining future. Buddy Matthews seemingly won't be leaving All Elite Wrestling anytime soon. Once again, Ibo of Wrestle Purist said that Buddy Matthews is signed to a new deal with AEW. When exactly Matthews put pen to paper on a new deal with AEW is unknown, nor is it known how long he is under contract for. Buddy Matthews signed with AEW in February of 2022 and debuted as the newest member of the House of Black, joining Malachi Black and Brody King in the faction. Matthews' future with AEW was thrown into doubt later in the year as he reportedly wanted to go back to WWE but has remained with AEW ever since. Matthews, as part of the House of Black, is a former AEW World Trios champion, having held the gold for 175 days in 2023. Matthews is currently off AEW television, having been written out of storylines with a backstage attack from the patriarchy in order for the 35-year-old to take some time off to get married to WWE's Rhea Ripley. When Matthews will return to AEW programming is unknown, and Malachi Black and Brody King have been booked as a tag team in his absence. Now, speaking of trios, the Bang Bang Gang, of course, no longer the AEW World Trios champions. That's because of an injury to Switchblade Jay White, led to the titles being vacated. Now, an update has emerged on Jay White's condition following an injury sustained on the July 6th edition of AEW Collision. Although it was recently reported by Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer that White would be out of action for a while, F4W Online now has a more optimistic outlook on the situation, stating, quote, Jay White's injury that caused the Bang Bang Gang, White, Austin Gunn, and Colton Gunn to vacate the AEW Trios titles is a legitimate foot injury. but White is not expected to miss a significant amount of time. Now, White's injury forced AEW to strip the trio of their titles that had only recently been specified in storyline that the Freebird rule was not in effect, meaning Juice Robinson could not take White's place as champion despite being part of the same stable. Instead, Robinson and the Guns challenged Christian Cage's Patriarchy for the vacant belts last week, with the last team coming out on top. So that's the details when it comes to Jay White's injury. Now, speaking of injuries, a bit of an update when it comes to Dalton Castle. Now, AEW CEO Tony Khan announced over the weekend that Dalton Castle would be out of action for the remainder of 2024, changing some plans for the upcoming Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view. Castle sustained an injury during the July 10 edition of AEW Collision, being knocked out legitimately following a flying knee from Roderick Strong. This caused a messy situation at the taping, as it was not supposed to be the finish, but AEW cleaned up the issue in editing for when Collision aired on July 13. While he was knocked out, Dalton Castle did reportedly not sustain a concussion, according to Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer. Castle is instead dealing with a different undisclosed injury that he will need to undergo surgery. Of course, as I mentioned, the injury bug has bitten AEW recently, with the likes of Jay White injured, Sky Blue sustained an injury this past weekend, and Killswitch reportedly sustained a partially torn biceps in the main event of AEW Collision as well. Now, going back to WWE, they've signed a top international prospect. According to Corey Brennan of Fightful Select, Delta has put pen to paper on a deal with WWE. The Australian pro wrestler attended WWE's tryouts in February ahead of Elimination Chamber, and she was subsequently offered a deal by the company. Delta ultimately signed the contract offered by WWE. Reportedly, she is scheduled to move to the United States this month, and she is expected to begin her WWE career in NXT once she is settled in North America. Delta made her pro wrestling debut in December 2020, and she has had over 130 matches since, wrestling on the Australian independents for the likes of Melbourne City Wrestling, Riot City Wrestling, and New Horizon Pro Wrestling. She became one of the top wrestling stars in Australia and even challenged Jordan Grace for the TNA Knockouts World Championship earlier this year. Of course, Delta is the latest rising star WWE has signed in recent months. Julia is expected to be on her way to WWE, possibly as soon as No Mercy on September 1st, while Stephanie Vacqua signed with WWE following her impressive match with Mercedes Moné at the AEW and New Japan Forbidden Door crossover pay-per-view. Now, speaking of AEW, Natalia, reportedly that was a consideration for the veteran WWE star before eventually re-signing with WWE. In a recent Q&A held by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, it was confirmed that Natalia could have joined AEW when her WWE contract was set to expire. Ultimately, she decided to sign a new deal to remain in WWE. When asked if Natalia seriously considered joining AEW, Sapp replied, quote, "Yes, she did. She considered all options." Natalia's decision to stay with WWE followed months of rumours and speculation regarding a potential move elsewhere. A previous Fightful Select report included a potential reason why it took so long for terms to be agreed between both parties, stating, quote, "We're told that Natalia was looking to make sure the outside project she was working on lined up with the terms of her deal. Ultimately, she decided to stay with WWE, although All Elite Wrestling were believed to be interested in adding Natalia to the roster, but of course she re-signed with WWE prior to her previous deal expiring." Now, some TNA Wrestling news here when it comes to their live events for the remainder of 2024. TNA Wrestling have made changes to their live event schedule for the remainder of this year, with the location of Bound for Glory still yet to be announced. TNA were initially set to head to Cleveland, Ohio on September 13 and September 14, but the promotion has announced TNA Victory Road and a TNA Impact television taping will be held at the Boeing Center at Tech Point in San Antonio, Texas instead. Other dates announced for the rest of the year include the Emergence TNA Plus special and a TV taping on August 30 and August 31 in Louisville, Kentucky. TNA Impact tapings in Spartanburg, South Carolina on September 27 and September 28, and more TNA Impact tapings on November 8 and November 9 from Fayetteville, North Carolina, before Turning Point TNA Plus special on November 29 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. TNA will finish out 2024 with the Final Resolution TNA Plus special on December 13 from Center Stage in Atlanta, Georgia, and a TV taping at the same venue on December 14. Following Slammiversary on July 20, TNA Wrestling will hold their next set of tapings on Friday, August 2nd and Saturday, August 3rd at the Florida State Fairgrounds in Tampa, Florida. When TNA will make an announcement about Bound for Glory is currently unknown. Now, an NXT Championship match has been set for the Great American Bash. All Ego Ethan Page's quest for revenge against Oro Mensah will come to a head in 2 weeks. On last night's WWE NXT, Page told NXT General Manager Ava that he would be willing to put his NXT Championship on the line to get his hands on the Meta-4 member. Ava granted his request, telling the champion he would be defending the title in 2 weeks on night 2 of the NXT Great American Bash. Mensah has been attacking Page for much of the champion's NXT career. Mensah once again attacked Page last week after Page's defense of the title against Dante Chen. Page won the title earlier this month at NXT Heatwave, where he took advantage of the rules of a fatal four-way to pin Javon Evans and win the title just over a month after the former TNA World Tag Team Champion's surprise debut in NXT. Now, speaking of the Great American Bash, there are several title matches that have been announced for the show, including the NXT Heritage Cup. The turf war between the No Quarter Catch crew and Tony D'Angelo's family have come to a head yet again. Following a confrontation backstage on NXT, D'Angelo granted No Quarter Catch Club member Tavon Heights a shot at the NXT Heritage Cup on night 1 of the Great American Bash. D'Angelo cited Tavon's Olympic credentials as the Catch Crew member competed in the 2020 Olympic Games in Greco-Roman wrestling, picking up a victory over Mikhail Kajja of Serbia. Heights is heading to Japan next month for the Pro Wrestling Noah N1 Victory Tournament, along with NXT comrade Josh Briggs, which will mark the Pro Wrestling Noah debut for both men. D'Angelo has been NXT Heritage Cup champion since May, when he dethroned Heights' No Quarter Catch Crew compatriot Charlie Dempsey. The NXT Great American Bash will take place over the course of the next 2 episodes of NXT, of course on Sci-Fi. Now, speaking of the special, we're also going to have a WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match set for the Great American Bash. Following Clash at the Castle, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire declared their intentions to defend their newly won WWE Women's Tag Team Championships across all 3 of WWE's brands. Just over a month later, that plan has now been put into motion as the duo, known as the Unholy Union, is set to defend their titles during Week 1 of the NXT Great American Bash special. On this week's episode of NXT, Meta-For's Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend defeated Sol Ruka and Carmen Petrovic in tag team action. Rather than celebrating their victory, though, Jackson and Legend quickly pivoted their focus to their next potential targets, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. In a post-match promo, Legend officially challenged Unholy Union to raise their tag team titles against herself and Jackson, who she referred to as the brightest stars in the galaxy. Minutes later, Fire and Dawn accepted Legend's request on X, with Dawn writing, quote, "The brightest stars in the galaxy are about to be dimmed. Lash and Jakara, consider your challenge accepted." With their nods of approval, Fire and Dawn will now defend the Women's Tag Team Championships on night 1 of the NXT Great American Bash. Of course, as mentioned, will be next week on Sci-Fi. Speaking of Week 1 of the Great American Bash, we will see Joe Hendry once again. Upcoming WWE plans for Joe Hendry have been revealed after the TNA wrestling star was highlighted to fans in a video on last night's NXT. With the crossovers between WWE, NXT and TNA wrestling continuing last night with the appearance of the Rascals, we'll talk about that again, another crossover appearance was announced for next week. NXT dedicated several minutes of last night's show to air a video explaining not only the viral sensation status of Joe Hendry, but also focusing on his history in professional wrestling. Within the package, it was revealed that NXT was in for a big treat next week to kick off the first of 2 special episodes airing away from the USA Network. It was announced that there will be a live concert on Sci-Fi for the first week of the NXT Great American Bash by Joe Hendry next week. After the video, shown in the Performance Center, being incensed by flyers announcing the concert, the members of Gallus, who didn't want to talk about Joe Hendry, although Joe Coffey did challenge him to a match, so seemingly that's going to be coming up in the near future. Now we have the ratings for Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network. The July 22nd edition of Raw had fans talking as the company made a big stride towards SummerSlam next weekend. CM Punk was officially cleared to wrestle Drew McIntyre, despite Seth Rollins having to be the special guest referee for their upcoming match. Jey Uso and Sami Zayn rolled back the clock on their friendship to get a big victory over the Judgment Day, and Liv Morgan was left heartbroken by Dominic Mysterio as he told her how much he hated her in 2 different languages. With all that in mind, did WWE see a shift in the TV ratings thanks to all of these moments? The answer is yes. As WrestleNomics reported that the July 22nd edition of Raw averaged a total of 1.793 million viewers, marking a 7% increase from the 1.669 the July 15th episode averaged the previous week. This also means that the show is at 1% from the trailing 4 weeks and 6% from the same quarter period in 2023. However, the average is down by 2% compared to the same month in 2023, which averaged a total of 1.814 million viewers. For the key 18 to 49 demographic, Raw saw another increase as the show earned a 0.59 number, marking a 5% increase on the number earned 7 days earlier. While this number is slightly down from the trailing 4 weeks, which averaged a 0.60, it is up 16% from the same quarter this time last year and up 9% from the average in July 2023. These numbers and figures could drop for next week's July 29 episode as it will air on Sci-Fi due to the Olympic Games airing on the USA Network. But with it being the go-home show for SummerSlam, expect big things to happen next week on Monday Night Raw. Now, it's had a bit of a shake-up when it comes to the backstage broadcast team in AEW recently. While there's been little change at the announcer's desk so far in 2024, the promotion has been overhauling their broadcast team in other areas. Longtime ring announcer and personality Dasha Gonzalez was let go from AEW earlier this year, while Alicia Atout and Arkandi Aura were added as backstage interviewers, and in Aura's case, the ring announcer for Rampage and Ring of Honor respectively. Even still, AEW has decided that a familiar face needed to be added to complete their broadcast team. Taking to Instagram on Tuesday afternoon, Melissa Santos posted a photo of herself standing in front of an AEW logo. In the ensuing message, she asked fans if they missed her and thanked AEW for the opportunity, indicating that she had signed with the promotion. Santos further thanked those who helped make this possible and closed it by saying it was time to get to work. Hashtag Santos posted indicated that she will serve as a similar role as Aura in that she'd be a backstage interviewer and a ring announcer. Santos was most recently seen in wrestling working for TNA, then Impact Wrestling, joining the promotion in 2019. Most wrestling fans, however, will be remembering Santos for her run as the ring announcer for all 4 seasons of Lucha Underground, where she worked from 2014 to 2018. While with the promotion, Santos also wrestled one match, teaming with future AEW co-worker Rey Fenix to take on Marty the Moth Martinez and Mariposa. Prior to Lucha Underground, Santos had trained as a wrestler, briefly competing in a Women of Wrestling in 2013. Joining AEW will reunite Santos with her husband Brian Cage, who has worked for AEW and Ring of Honor since 2020. The couple had previously worked together in Lucha Underground and Impact, where their relationship was acknowledged on screen. Now, Jim Ross has provided a bit of an update when it comes to his status for AEW All In next month. Commentator Jim Ross has been an ever-present voice in AEW since its inception in 2019, but due to persistent health problems in recent years, Ross has been featured on TV less and less, only appearing on pay-per-views in 2024 to call the most important matches. AEW's next pay-per-view will be All In at Wembley Stadium in London, England, meaning an extremely long flight for Ross if he's healthy enough to appear. Despite this, Ross mentioned on Grilling JR that he is hoping to be at Wembley Stadium this year, as well as thanking fans for wishing him well, and AEW President Tony Khan for giving him as much time as he needs to recover. Quote, "It makes me feel good to know that people still give a shit, because I damn sure give a shit," Ross said. "I hope to be in London. It's not a guarantee yet, but it's something that I'm shooting for. Last year, I worked a couple of matches. That was plenty, so we'll see how it works out this time. Tony Khan's been extremely fair with me, and I want to be extremely fair with him." Some of the latest health problems the Hall of Famer has had to endure include undergoing surgery on his hip, spending time in the hospital after suffering from shortness of breath and elevated heart enzymes, all of which he has since recovered from. Ross did have some positive news to share with one of his followers on social media recently, as he confirmed that he had undergone surgery on his wrist, which went successfully, meaning that a return to Wembley Stadium might be on the cards for the legendary voice of wrestling. And finally, the Rascals once again reunited last night on WWE NXT. The Rascals picked up a victory on NXT television with the cross-promotional trio getting the victory in last night's main event. Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz, and Wesley defeated Javon Evans, Nathan Fraser, and Axiom on Tuesday's show in a chaotic, fast-paced main event that was set up earlier on in the night when the Rascals told Fraser and Evans they wanted a shot at the NXT Tag Team Championships. A 6-man tag team match was made instead. Wentz picked up the victory for his team, pinning Axiom and making the case for a tag team title shot. But there you go, guys. Latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.